Great. Well, welcome everyone to our second WEAMTA webinar series of the year. And we are beyond excited to have you today. We've got our very own Jen Zarowski joining us. Jen is a library and media instructional technologist from West De Pere in Wisconsin, and she is a Google education trainer. And you've got a session coming up today, Jen, on tour creator creating virtual field trips. So we're super excited to have you. We are going to be learning from you in just a moment. I do want to give a few people some heads up if you're just joining us in the live session. If you want to ask questions, feel free to do so in the chat. You should see the chat option in kind of your GoToMeeting sidebar. So feel free to submit questions in the chat, and we'll either take those during the session or at the end. And then if you do want to ask questions just with your microphone, just make sure to do that at the end. We'll have about 15 minutes, 10 minutes of questions at the end for Jen in a little bit here. So that's kind of our plan for the night. If you're having any issues, feel free to put them in the chat as well, and I'll do my best to troubleshoot along with you. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jen. So grab my little turn it off here. I'm going to stop showing my screen. And Jen, if you want to go ahead and take over presenting duties and introduce yourself, go for it.
Okay, great. Like I said, thanks for the introduction, John. As he said, I am a library media instructional technology specialist in the school district of West De Pere, which is in the burbs of Green Bay in the shadows of Lambeau Field. Although Lambeau Field has seen better days, haven't we? So my contact information is up there if you need to get a hold of me on Twitter or email, and I also have my website linked. The website does have all presentations that I've done, so if you're interested in anything else, you can pop in there. This one is under Google Tour Creator, so you can click at the top and make a copy, or you can follow along with the presentation there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I just have a quick slide here with my information. As John said, I'm a Google education trainer, and this falls right into all of that. Kind of fell in love with Google Expeditions a few years back, and was kind of impatiently waiting for the ability to create our own virtual field trips, and this came along last year. So I don't want to start without also mentioning my team. We have really kind of banded together with the Ashwaubenon School District. Jamie Aberbeck is a tech coordinator over there, and Jen Layden is their instructional technology specialist. And then my team of Ashley, Nikki, and Jen. Although I'm presenting tonight, this has really been a group effort to get virtual field trips up and running, and we've kind of worked together over the last several years to try to create content for this area, not just our schools, but for our area, because we've seen a need through our curriculum initiatives that we've had. To just kind of go back to the beginning, I guess our story really started when we started seeing a need for local content. We were using Google Expeditions often, but found a need for personalized experience for our kids. So for instance, I know our fifth graders were doing recycling tours, and we found the New York Recycling Center on Google Expeditions, but nothing local. So we kind of started up Wisco VR, and this is a website that is ever evolving. We've kind of focused on two different areas. Really, many of our fourth grade teachers needed more information on some of the Wisconsin studies and history that's going on. So we started with our local outdoor classroom, I guess, Fallen Timbers, which is in the area, and we started working with them on creating tours of that spot. And that has really, we've had many benefits from that. Many of the people that we've met with were very nervous that we were going to stop taking field trips, and we've tried to help our community understand that it's just supplementing field trips. So for example, some of those students that maybe have special needs that could use a quick preview of the field trip or what's going to actually happen when they get to the field trip, this is a great way for some of our teachers and special ed teams to take them through that and give them a preview of what they're going to see to ease their nerves and anxiety. The other thing we use it a lot for is follow-ups. Many of our field trips are scheduled, you know, a week or two or before, months even sometimes, before the actual unit is taught. And there's a certain disconnect. I mean, when you're 5, you just don't always remember exactly what you saw when you went to Fallen Timbers or to Heritage Hill. So this allows the teachers to kind of take them back. And what we've done is we've built content not only with a goggle view, so if they have VR goggles, but we've also put all these images into Street View, into Google Maps. So the reason I'm telling you this is it kind of gives you a history of where we started with this before we had the ability to create anything within the Google area. The other part of this is community helpers, especially our kindergarten does a lot with community helpers, and it just kept coming up that the books that we had in the library or the Google Expeditions that were available were not very helpful in helping our kids really understand what our local places looked like because of cost. Sometimes those students can't get there. We're working with Lambeau Field and Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame right now, to kind of give kids a glimpse into those areas that they may not be able to afford or don't have the ability to travel to. For instance, even the local fire department, I have to say the image that I had in my head of what the fire department looked like probably was pretty old school. I thought there was a second floor where all the firefighters kind of slept together. That sounds really bad, but stayed together when they were off shift or weren't on a call. But it turns out they've just redone the whole thing. It looks a lot like a dorm room, and we worked with our community and Fireman Dan, and he kind of took us through and explained all these areas. So for Fire Week, this is something that our kindergarten teachers use. Although the firemen still come in and firewomen still come in to talk to them about the fire department, it's really helpful for our kids to actually see what it actually looks like. Along those same lines, we have a huge focus on play at our school. So I know I'm going to click on the airport one. One of the dramatic play areas that the kindergartners create is an airport. So instead of kind of having random photos from different airports around the world, we actually have a tour with the Green Bay Airport and some of the people that are working there so that they can actually see what that's like. Many of our kids haven't gone on an airplane ride, so going through security or helping them understand what they're going to be going through when they go there. So those were really the two areas that we focused on with Wisco VR before everything kind of came out with the tour creator. Because of that, I just threw this in there. You can read it at your leisure. We are highlighted by DPI, which is really exciting. And I do want to say that if anybody wants to add content to this within Wisconsin, we are always willing to add things in. I know Jen Layden from Ashwaubenon had gone to the Cranberry Marsh over in the Nakusa area and took some beautiful pictures there. She moonlights as a photographer, so some of these I'd like to hang on my wall. But as we were looking at different Wisconsin industries, this is one that kept coming up. So if there's anybody out there that wants to create some things and work with us, we would love that and love to add it to our site. So then last year, I applied for the Google Expeditions beta opportunity and got accepted into that beta program. And our two teams worked together to design our first Google Expedition. That was actually, I have also a link to the Google News or Google blog as well that you can read at your leisure. We were accepted into that beta opportunity and then created Making Maple Syrup in Northeast Wisconsin, which then ended up being highlighted by Google when they had finally rolled out Google Tour Creator and Google Expeditions in May for the general public. This was really awesome because what we did is we used those photos that we had from the Environmental Center, Fallen Timbers, and we created an actual tour for the students that they could then go through and flip through the scenes to learn more about the maple syrup process. So this is linked in that slide. You're more than welcome to head in here and check it out. But we know that especially our fourth graders and also our first graders do a lot with the maple syrup process. So they can go through and see this process actually happening at our local environmental center. The kids also go here, so they do get a real life hands-on experience of this. But often, as you know, maple syrup is very dependent on the weather. So sometimes they have those field trips planned and the maple syrup is not quite flowing or the sap is not quite flowing. So this is a really great experience for our teams to kind of sit down and work through this for that first time. The tour creator announcement was last May. and it is working through something called Google Poly, which came out last November. And Google Poly, I do have a description in here. It's basically, I'm gonna exit out of this one. It's basically kind of a host site for the world of 3D, for AR and VR stuff. And if you drop down, you can see all of your things within it, and you can see and explore some of the different things that they have in. The cool thing is, if I go into tours, I can search for tours that are public. So if I wanted a White House tour, I can see that the Google Expedition from the White House Holiday Tour is already in here, so I can go into that. The great thing is if you find somebody that's making fantastic tours, you can also click on that user. So I can go into Google Expeditions, and they're slowly moving these in here, all of the expeditions that they have, and I can check out all of the Google Expeditions that are available. So in the past, I feel like with Google Expeditions, it was kind of a, I want to say there was an equity issue there, because a lot of the materials used for the actual VR, with the kits, with the phones, with the VR goggles, especially with the younger ages of kids that maybe didn't have phones, I think there were some equity issues of the kids that could not do it, where this kind of levels the playing field and allows all students to go in here and do this. You can use VR goggles, but you don't have to have them. And I'll say that I would say the majority of our teachers that are using VR are actually just using the websites and pulling it up on the smartboard and spinning that picture and kind of looking around, because it saves so much time rather than hauling out the phones and the VR kits and things like that. So this is definitely something that you can do in your classroom without having to invest a ton of money. My love for Tour Creator was also fueled by advocacy within the library. So if you have a library or technology role, you know that oftentimes funding is always kind of on the chopping block. And it's really important for librarians, especially, to advocate for their schools and their school libraries. And I'm also serve on the board, and I'm chair of the leadership committee. So the one thing that I really wanted to do is create some library virtual reality tours of the different school libraries. I had the honor and privilege to go out to Washington, D.C. to represent Wisconsin school libraries for 2 years. And I specifically remember many of our representatives are kind of out of touch with what school libraries actually look like. So eventually, if we get lots of people to fill out this Google form, what's going to happen is this map is going to start to populate. And this map is something that we can then share with some of those legislators. Once it's populated, your school and your information will actually show up on the side. So you can upload your 360 pictures if you want to do virtual reality tours of your library. So this is Chad Lehman's library. Give him a little shout out. And then the other cool thing is you can also add in like Google Drive photos or folders if you want to add those in, and you can kind of step into other people's libraries. Within that Future Ready framework, I know one of the big drives is the use of space and time, and how are we, what are we using our library spaces for? How are we redesigning them? What kind of furniture do we have in them? Are we doing maker spaces? So this is a great way to really showcase your space or get ideas for a renovation if that's something that you're interested in. So I'm giving that little plug here too for virtual reality tours for the library, knowing that I'm going to be going over Tour Creator, and this would be something that you could use to give us a tour. All right, so I'm not going to go through all these 10 reasons, but many times I hear people say, I have been turned down. I've talked to my administrators about using virtual reality. I would love to get the goggles, or I'd love to get the phones, and they say no. Thankfully, if it's part of your library plan, this can be something that you use your library funding for. So that's exciting. But here are 10 of the many reasons that you want to try to use virtual reality in the classroom. I think the biggest reason that I've really caught on to it is number 2, the developing empathy. So if we can allow our students to kind of step into the position of other humans in the world, they kind of develop some more empathy and compassion for how other people live and work and all sorts of things. So that's been really fun to watch. I make fun of one of my coworkers who I had sit through a VR tour, and I looked over and she was crying her eyes out. So just going to touch base with Tour Creator. It's a total online tool where you do create the 360-degree tours, and these can be shared and viewed by others, and you can have multiple scenes. So I had shown you the making maple syrup and the cranberry farming, and the rest of the slides in the presentation really kind of go through how to make one, but we're going to actually do that tonight. So this will be a resource for you. I'm sure I will tweet it out. I'm sure John will tweet it out. But the rest of the slideshow presentation is really a step-by-step to do that, but we're going to kind of do that together tonight. The biggest question we often get is, what kind of camera do you have? We use, both of our schools, or all of our schools, I should say, are using the Ryko Theta S, I think it is, camera. We've had a lot of success with that. It's super easy. You stick it on a tripod, you put it in the middle of the room, you walk away, and you click a little button that it will sync to a phone or an iPad, and then you grab your camera. I know Jamie from Ashwaubenon also just purchased a Lenovo Mirage, and that's a 180 camera that you can actually 4K video stream, and I know he's had some projects he'd wanted to try with that. But again, really it's a level playing field again. The Cardboard Camera app in the Android store or the iTunes store will totally work for this. So as long as you can get a 360 photo, these tours are something that the kids can create at school as well. I will say just a quick plug about Tour Creator. Depending on who your Google admin is, in the Google admin panel, you do have to turn it on. So, and that will be a discussion you'll have to have about whether you want to turn it on for students, staff, or both. Before we hop into Tour Creator, I'm just going to stop and ask John if we have any questions. We're doing okay? Sounds good. Just hopped in there to see.
We are, it looks like no questions in the chat yet. But I'll keep an eye out. So just another plug for people, though. If you have questions, put them in the chat, or you can ask them live at the end of the session.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to check. You know, it's so quiet. I'm like, is everybody still there? But it looks like they are, so that's good. So back to it. So again, all of the steps are really here. How can it be viewed? Creating the tour, starting a new tour, adding your scenes, text and audio, publishing, and then let's try it. And then at the bottom, there's a bunch of additional resources. So I'm going to leave this here and make sure that that's shared with you guys. But I am going to close out some of these tabs and actually head into Tour Creator so that you can see exactly how to do this. So once you get in, you just simply click on Getting Started. And I have one that's kind of in draft mode that I started. But to get going with a new tour, you just simply click on the plus new tour button and give it a name. So I'm just going to call this Green Bay Airport 2 because I downloaded some of my photos. Just to give you kind of an idea for our workflow, so what we do is we usually go to these community spaces or go to different areas, and when we're done, we dump everything. I'll kind of move this in here, hopefully you can see it. We dump everything into a folder. So we have all of our tours right within our Wisco VR folder. And now that Tour Creator is out, we're slowly rebuilding some of these and adding those into Tour Creator as well. So we just dump them in here and kind of get to our projects whenever we get to them. So I'm going to go back into the airport and kind of show you. We have all of our 360 photos in here, we have our videos in here, and then we have our still shots in here. I'm going to move that out. Okay, so you can add a description. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I think that one makes a lot of sense. And then you can grab a category, which I believe you have to have. Unfortunately, there's no education right now, so you do have to pick a spot, or you can just do uncategorized. The other thing you do have to have is a cover photo, and it can be a still photo or a 360 photo. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab my entrance to the airport 360 photo here. Again, you do have to have some kind of a picture in there, and once you have all of those things in, you just simply click Create. So it would be really easy for a teacher to share that Google Drive folder of images. So just an idea, something that you could easily do is if you're going on a field trip with the kids, you can put them all in charge of one of the spots that they are going to be seeing, or maybe they're all using the same photos and you're going to see how all the students or what they have gotten out of the field trip. The one negative right now is that tours are not collaborative. So if I'm working on a tour and John is my partner, I can't share that tour with John so we can work on it together, or even so that he can see it. I'm hoping they make improvements to that in the future, but right now that is the way it is. So you could share those photo Google Drive folders with the kiddos in Google, and then they can go ahead and download what they need as well, or take the pictures individually. So once you get in, you have two options. You can use Street View. So many of the popular places, let's see if the Green Bay Airport's in here. I'm kind of curious. Okay, and it's kind of a gamble. Actually, this might be one of our photos, oddly enough. It's kind of a gamble on what you're going to get. You can drag this little gold guy. You can drag him around. Again, the streets would have to turn blue so that he could go somewhere. But anywhere that the streets are blue, you could drag him in. And it looks like it's the entrance, and then you can add that scene in. So in some cases, if you go ahead and look beforehand for the kids, some of them might just be able to use whatever photo comes up as a default in Street View. And that would eliminate the need for them to even take any photos or have an app or have a camera or anything like that. So that's kind of cool. The other option you have is clicking on the upload button, and that is where you would either select or drop a 3D image or a 360 image in. So I'm just going to drag that entrance to the airport back in again and add that scene to my tour. So you can see that on the right-hand side, I have an untitled scene. So I'm just going to put entrance to the airport. My location is Green Bay, Wisconsin. My description is, this is the airport in Green Bay. Credits, you can put your name in there. And then you have an option to add ambient audio or scene narration. Now, I will warn you, if you choose to do one of these things, they play the entire time that someone is looking at the photo. In other words, you may not want to use those because it gets kind of annoying. The point of interest is where you start adding in those little dots. And if a student is looking with VR goggles and they pause on that dot, what's going to happen is it's going to tell them what they're looking at. So right now, this would be the arrival, departure, doors. This is where you enter the airport. And you can see under this one, you can add an image overlay. So if you want something to pop up larger, piece of art, a sign that you want them to be able to read, I can then, I don't know if this is the perfect one for this spot, but I can then add in, I can rotate it, I can delete it, I can add in an image, show you what that looks like, so that, and you can tweak that if you want, so that the kids see a more up close view when they actually click on that. And you can move that around if you need to. The other thing you can do is add sight narration. So when they would hover over that with their VR goggles, if they're using goggles, it's going to pop up and an audio file is going to play. I have a site linked in my presentation that works for that really well. The other site I really like is called Vocaroo. I'm actually going to add that one in here, and I will link that in too. That one you just download the MP3 and you can easily upload that to your tour. So I'll show you how easy that is. I'm just dragging in, I have dual monitors here, so I'm dragging that in and I click add in. So when that child or when that adult goes ahead and looks at that spot, this picture is going to pop up, and then that site narration is also going to go. From here, you can continue adding points of interest. You can add as many as you want. Black truck, and you can add some things there. When you're ready, you can have multiple scenes. So I'm going to click on add a scene. And again, this time I'll do the baggage claim. So I drag that one in, I click add scene, and then from here, I name it. and I fill out all the stuff, and then I can start adding points of interest. I don't know what this thing is called. Baggage train, baggage tray. I'm not really sure, but this is where your suitcases come. All right. So you can go ahead and spin this around, add as many points of interest that you want, and until you're happy with that. You can see at the bottom, I can easily click the delete scene button or move left if I want to move them around. And then once you're finished with your entire presentation or your entire tour, you're going to click on publish, and you have two options. So public is the one, when I searched for White House tour, the reason that one came up is because it was set to public. The only ones that you are going to actually see in those searches will be public. If you don't want them to be searchable on Google Poly, you can go to unlisted and publish it that way. And if you choose to do that one, you need to make sure that you're actually sharing the link with all your friends. So it'll give you that link to copy, and then you can email that out and view the tour. Of course, it's not going to work right now, right? So if you copy that, you should be able to paste it in. It might be processing right now too. There we go. You eventually just email that link out, and everybody else will be able to view your tour. John, did you have something? Baggage carousel. I love that. Thank you. What should I call it? A tray?
It just came to me.
John. Oh, man. So I guess at this point, I just wanted to point out, I have a bunch of additional resources in, not just for Tour Creator, but for Google Expeditions, creating 360 images. Our Wisco VR site also has some kind of step-by-step directions that Jamie has put together too. So if you're interested in taking a peek at those, that would be an option as well. Does anybody have any questions about the things that I shared?
Yeah, we will open up to questions, and you can feel free to ask these in the chat. I've been kind of keeping an eye on the chat while we're going. You can jump in with any questions you might have if you want to ask them, just via your microphone as well. Did have a couple that came in here, Jen. So the first one was, if somebody was interested in submitting something to Wisco VR, do you have what would be the steps to submit something to Wisco VR to be posted?
That is a great question. Our contact information is on that page. I'm just going to head back there. There's an About Us button. If you just want to, I see that our emails are not on here. So I'm going to make that happen. I will go ahead and edit this tonight and add those in. Maybe a little spot in there that says if you would like to add some information, just email this person or this person, so that we can hopefully get some more tours on there. We'd love to start working with different parts of our state, especially when we're talking geography, geology, things like that. We don't have a whole lot of hills in Green Bay. So, that western Wisconsin area with the La Crosse area and things like that, I'm just thinking about how many different features and landforms that they have in that area of the state that would be cool for the kids to see.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. So I did put in the chat, just email Jen. She'll have that on the Wisco VR site, and it's just wiscovr.org. They posted that in the chat along with some other links that Jen mentioned. I did see we had a couple others come in. Michelle asked about sharing the link to the slides again. So Jen, if you want to just put those in the chat, and we can put the link to the slides on the weemta.org site under this recording too. If anybody's watching the recording, we'll do that. There you go. Jen's got that link set in there. And then I know another one came in too. I know you maybe touched on this a little bit earlier in the session, but what camera was it that you recommended?
That is also on here. We linked to that, or have named it in here. The Ryko, I'm going to actually Google this while I'm talking to you, so I'll pop a link in there. I think it's the Ryko Theta S that I have. I know Jamie had purchased the other one. These have really come down in price too, which is nice. They're much more affordable. They do have one now that does video. I personally don't love the video in 360, but I also have motion sickness issues. So I will link in the Ryko Theta the S into the presentation if you want to take a peek at that. It's cyber shopping week, right? So maybe there's some good deals out there that you can get. But again, this one's fantastic. It easily syncs with your phone or with an iPad. I can't see the bottom of it, but it has a screw-in base, just like a normal video camera would have or a camera would have. So we just pop a tripod on there, and then we step out of the room, kind of put that in the middle of the room, step out, click the capture button, and it takes a tenth of a second to take the picture, and then we grab the camera and go to the next room. So that's been really nice for working with the different community places too. We do tell them we're not going to be there long. It's really pretty quick. I think the biggest drawback we have is sometimes they're nervous to do some of those video recordings for us. And I should mention that right now you can see that with these different scenes and points of interest, there's no spot for video. We're kind of impatiently waiting for them to add that. You can add it in as text to go to a YouTube video, but they would actually have to copy and paste it out. I was creeping on the Google Expeditions tours, so I get back to Polly. And I noticed yesterday that when I was looking at Google Expeditions tours, I don't remember which one I was in. I think it was this one. They actually had videos linked in, but they're not working yet. So my prediction is that they're coming. I don't have any confirmation of that, but seeing this icon right here kind of makes me wonder if those are coming and they're just not opening up yet. So again, just a prediction. I'm hoping that comes eventually because it'd be great for kids to be able to hover over those spaces and have a video pop up so it can kind of describe in more detail what they're looking at.
Well, you heard it here first. Jen Zarowski predicting that we'll have video in Tour
No,
Creator.
it's always scary to do, but that's going to be my prediction, Google prediction for the night.
All right, we had another one that came in. How do the cardboard camera 360 images look? Do they have any issues like stitching together, or are they pretty good?
No, they're actually pretty good. It guides you through with dots. If you download it, you can kind of play around with it. It's always better, obviously, to not have humans in your pictures. Oftentimes it looks like there's a floating head sometimes because if you move, it just looks a little wacky. But so I always try to do my 360 photos with an empty space if possible. I know that's not always possible, but if you can go to wherever you want to go and try to coordinate a time where there's nobody there or very little people there, very few people there, it really does help with your images. So that would be my tip is, especially if you're using that cardboard cameras, to try to eliminate the humans out of your photos. But it's pretty slick, works pretty well.
Great. Another question that we had come in, somebody was wondering, how does the narration sound if somebody's using like basic goggles or headsets that you might get in like a Google Expeditions kit or things like that? Does it sound okay, or is it better? Does it sound better just when you're having students visit a tour from a Chromebook or a laptop or something?
That's a good question. I think it's probably pretty dependent on what kind of virtual reality goggles you're using. I know I have the old school ViewMaster ones, and they don't come with a port for a headset. I know some of the more sophisticated ones have a spot where you can actually plug in, and no two headphones seem to be created equal. So I guess probably the quality would definitely affect that. If you're using a computer, it's just once you click on it, it should start playing.
Great. Great.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. And then another question that we had come into, can you embed the tours in Site? So if you make one, can you embed it, or is it link only right now?
I believe it's link only, but let me check to see if they've switched anything. It was link only. Let's see what their share options are. So, there is an embed code. So I'm going to grab this and we're going to play. This looks awesome, actually. I'm going to go down. And of course, I'm not in my work account. I'm going to actually pull this one over. We're going to give it a try. It's always fun to try things on the fly, isn't it? We'll put it on the main page and see what it looks like. So we're going to go up to embed, embed code, paste it in. That's not what I want, is it? Let's go back here. Isn't it fun to do this stuff on the fly? I need to find where I put it here. Here we go. I wonder if it's going to let me paste in a different window. See if it lets me here. I'm guessing, look at that. Looks like it's thinking about it. Yeah, it works. This is great. So if you are using Google Sites, or I'm guessing most different web browsers or web builders, sorry, website builders, if there is an embed option, it looks like you can pop those tours right in there. So that's great.
Well, that's great to hear. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
I guess
Awesome.
we'll, and thank you for live testing it for us on the spot.
Hey, I'm always happy to do that because you just, you never know. So the different options were Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and then just copying that link to send out. So that's all right on the bottom there once you publish your tour.
Perfect. We'll do one last call if anybody wants to either jump in via mic or via the chat. We've had some great questions come in already. Just put that on there, last call of our attendees. Great. Looks like that's about it, Jen. I can't thank you enough for your session tonight. It was wonderful. I've got tons of ideas flowing for ideas for things create for VR. I might be emailing you with some ideas for the Wisco VR site too.
Hey, that sounds great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be wonderful. I am going to take over your screen. Sorry about that.
Perfect. No,
Control freak
okay.
over here. All right. So I'm just going to get a quick plug on here. Is everybody seeing my screen okay, I hope? I'm just going to present this really quick. So just one plug that I want to get in here. We are going to have the WEMTA conference coming up this March, and our theme is Many Voices, Many Choices. I know we just closed the offering for proposals, but now we're going to start rolling out the messaging for registration for the WEMTA conference. So if you're interested in joining, we would love to have you. If you want to learn more about that, go to wemta.org. And this presentation will be on wemta.org as well. So check that out. It'll be under our professional development page. And you'll be able to see Jen's great presentation on how to create virtual tours. And we'll have links to some of those resources that she also shared as well.
Yeah, and I actually, just to kind of put a plug in too, if you know anyone going and you think they would be interested in Tour Creator, I will be doing this presentation there as well. So send them my way.
Look at that. So one of the voices at WEMTA will be the Jen Zarowski.
It's one of your choices. Isn't that great? Yes. It's like we planned that, John.
Yes, totally. So now you got to go, right? Take that
That's right.
Again. I want to relive it already. So just want to get a plug in for this as well. If you want a certificate of completion tonight to, maybe use for, educator effectiveness project to show your district that you've been learning outside of the school day, we would love for you to go to bit.ly/certificate November. And then the first page, you just need this keyword, Wisco VR. So if you type in Wisco VR, it'll take you to a page you can enter in your information, and you will get a PDF certificate of completion with your name, today's session on it, and the session objectives so that people can see what you learned about, what you are able to do as a result of this session. So go ahead and check that out. Otherwise, we can't thank you enough from WEMTA for attending tonight. Again, go to wemta.org to see this recording if you want to check back and get some of Jen's wonderful resources. Jen, thank you again. Thank you to our live attendees.
We need to thank you just as much. It's a lot of work to put all this professional development stuff together. So thank you for coordinating.
Absolutely, it is an honor. I get the best part. I get to sit back and enjoy really great people.
True. That's true.
Yeah. Absolutely. Labor of love.
That's
But
right. That's right.
but
Well,
yes,
thanks
thank
everybody for attending. Please reach out if you need anything extra.
perfect. Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you, everybody
Yep.
who attended. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to email weem to weem.org and visit the site. And have a good night.